Hello. I'll just wait for some people to show up. Hi there. Gosh, my glasses are filthy. Thank you. Thanks for letting me know. Yeah, is my voice... I turned up the game volume so that we could hear the music. Is the volume of my voice fine relative to that? Happy to adjust those things. Okay. Yeah, welcome. I released, yeah, maybe I should just jump out real quick and talk about this thing that I just released. It's a mod for Quake 1. You need the Quake Spasm source port to play it with. I've got the instructions for how to download it and get it up and running. It's a free mod, obviously, because it uses the Creative Commons licensed 9 Inch Nails album that they released in 2008 called Ghosts, volumes 1 through 4. And yeah, I basically I was listening. This album came up on my playlist recently, and I was like, oh yeah, I remember this. Yeah, I remember enjoying this. This is kind of a cool. It's 9 Inch Nails doing their own take on like Brian Eno's ambient stuff and the Aphex Twin ambient stuff. And I was like, well, yeah, there's 36 of these tracks. Is that how many levels are in Quake? Because I wonder if I could match one track to each level in Quake. And it didn't quite add up. But then when I used one track for each, one track for intermissions as well for each episode, it worked out. And so yeah, most of the work of this mod was just in figuring out how to replace the soundtrack, you know, without editing the maps themselves, and also just making the very subjective calls on which tracks work with which maps, because they're all instrumental tracks and they each have their own kind of feel to them. And yeah, it was a fun exercise, and yeah, and it seemed to go well with the tourism type stuff where you don't have weapons and you're just moving around the environments and looking at the architecture and atmosphere. So, yes, I'm sorry about the Twitch ads. Also, yeah, like last Wednesday I had some technical problems with the stream, and I talked to my ISP and they made some changes, and I think that's all straightened out now, so I wanted to do a test stream before next WOD Wednesday. So yeah, thank you for joining me today. Yeah, so yeah, let's just, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot you can say about the beginning part of Quake here. This is the start map where you, in-game, choose your difficulty and which episode you want to play. That was sort of a weird thing that they did. I think this level was actually made basically right at the end of Quake's development by John Romero. All the other levels were done, and he wanted to have like a map, instead of just selecting them from a menu like you did in Doom. He wanted to have there be a map where you could select the different episodes. Now the different episodes were each made, were by and large each made by one of four, by each of Quake's four level designers. Episode 1 actually is more of a mix because it was the shareware episode, so it's got some maps from, it's got one map from American McGee, 2 from Romero, I believe, maybe just 1. And then the rest are by Tim Willits. Episode 2 is by John Romero, and that's basically all his stuff. I think maybe the secret level is by Tim Willits. Episode 3 is All American McGee. And then Episode 4 is by Sandy Peterson. And so each of them, that was something I was thinking about as I was trying to pair different tracks to these levels, is that they each had their own set of feel to them. Like they actually, and like in the entry hallway for each of these episodes here, you see like fairly different texturing themes. Like this thing looks pretty different from this thing, you know, American McGee's trademark use of lava and metal plating textures, and then you've got like Sandy Peterson's oddball like brick and wood type stuff, as well as an unconventional use of like a floating water volume. So getting into that more surreal, like, you know, Lovecraftian stuff. So anyway, yeah, I figure I'll jump into episode 1 here, just because it's probably the thing that most people played. It's the one that most people played and remember most clearly. So yeah, and again, this is tourism, so we're not running around like blasting enemies or anything. We're just running through and looking at the architecture. Each of the 4 episodes starts with a tech base. The rest of the game is fairly like medieval fantasy themed. Whereas the first level of each episode is a tech-based type thing, where you're fighting like soldier guys with guns, and there's Rottweiler dogs. And so yeah, I chose this track just because it's like a good, like, hard driving, aggro, like more open, like more obviously electronic. Yeah, like it's a fast-paced level. You know, I mean, this was Romero trying to top his act from E1M1, from Doom. And so yeah, like it's, you know, it's got a similar kind of shape to it, a horseshoe shape, where you've got I don't know, maybe I can fly outside the level and get to the end. It's got these buttons that you press in a sequence, and you're going down. One of Romero's guiding tenets on the level design for Doom and Quake was to always be making stuff that couldn't have been made in the previous engine, so that they can show off their fancy new tech. And this is certainly one of those kinds of spaces. Like, you know, there's just no way that you could build something like this in Doom without major compromises and a completely different feel. So yeah, and there's all kinds of wacky secrets and stuff here. Like there's this secret that really takes a bit of jumping to get to. Like you see this thing up from ground level, and then you get in here, and there's a little mega health in here when you're not playing in tourism mode. Oh, okay, yeah. Actually, let me save and quit out here. I think that's the only way I can adjust my voice volume, actually. Actually, I'm going to turn the desktop audio down a little bit. Let's do that. Now let's just load up my previous game here. Okay. So yeah, and then you get to the end of each of these 4 tech-based levels, and there's a teleporter pad, and that takes you into the main part of the episode, where it's all medieval fantasy castle wizard type levels. And yeah, like I picked out, like there's some much more like downbeat, or you know, just like piano focused. They don't have like the sort of dark, gritty, you know, aggressive atmosphere of some of the other tracks on the album. So I used those for the intermissions. There's a different track that has this kind of feel for each of the 4 episode intermission screens. So you'll hear that track multiple times as you're playing through the episode, and it's just kind of a counterpoint to what else is going on. So yeah, this is, Castle of the Damned by Tim Willits. And yeah, this is the first look you really get at what will be a very common theme of like a medieval structure, the purple sky, the you know, like a moat. There's a lot of moats and bridges in Quake. Yeah. And yeah, like the the sound effects ambience of Quake 1's like just like environmental sounds coming through, which were of course done by like apparently. So yeah, like the sound design in this game is credited to Nine Inch Nails. Apparently, like, you know, Trent Reznor and his collaborators like did a whole bunch of sound design stuff, and then like they just kind of gave it to them in a big dump, as well as the music, the ambient music tracks that are like on the game's CD. And then apparently like that wasn't like a full set of sounds for the game, you know, because Trent Reznor wasn't like working with the dev team, as far as I know, like figuring out like, okay, you need like a pain sound for this one guy, and you need a thing, you know. I mean, I think he basically just gave id a bunch of stuff, and then I think it was American McGee who did a lot of the work from there to like turn it into a full video game sound set. Anyway, so all of which is to say, I don't know exactly who to credit, you know, like who has the primary responsibility for things like the environmental ambiences, like we're hearing wind and crickets and like swampy type sounds and stuff. And I don't know how much of that was Trent and his collaborators and how much of it was American McGee. There's not, compared to Doom, there's not a lot of stuff that you can recognize from stock sound effect CDs, or maybe I'm just not enough of a sound design nerd to be able to recognize what they're pulling from. But Quake 1 does unquestionably have like a super unique sonic palette, which I think is one of the reasons that I got the idea to do this project. Yeah, so yeah, you're just going through this kind of castle-y sort of space. You get there's gold and silver keys in a lot of the levels. It kind of varies by theme. Like I think there's a gold and silver key card in the tech-based levels. There's a gold and silver key in the castles, and then like there's also rune keys and something else. Like each designer really had their own kind of theming that they would put on stuff. Tim Willits was all about the castles. By the way, a lot of this information that I'm telling you is it's a combination of stuff that I already knew going way back, you know, and had just followed and read about the game's development. Some of it's from Masters of Doom, the book about id Software's, you know, golden years, basically. And then some of it is, I was reminded of it, or it was genuinely new information from the recent Shack News piece about Quake 1's development and release and legacy. And that's a really good piece. You can, I guess it's on shacknews.com. I think they want you to like, there's more chapters to it, and they want you to pay for after the second chapter. But it's a really good story, and yeah, it's worth reading if you just want to immerse yourself in Quake stuff. All right, this track is going to get a lot more aggro. Yeah, I like this. This track kind of jumped out to me as being for this level because, like, it builds and builds to like this really scary kind of like menacing, you know, screaming pitch, you know, which is pretty trademark, you know, Nine Inch Nails, you know, given a certain part of their career. And there are multiple crushing ceilings in this level, and like this room specifically is like this scenario where you walk in, the door locks behind you, and this thing comes down, and you have to shoot the thing that's directly ahead of you. So it's the easiest puzzle in the world, but one of the demos that shipped with the game, like just playing, you know, somebody else playing in the attract mode, they show this, you know, and they make a point of like looking up and seeing the crushing ceiling bearing down, and yeah, I enjoyed that. You know, I think they were much like they were keen to show off like what this new engine could do in terms of architecture. They were also really like they wanted to up all of the stuff that they had done in Doom as far as traps. You know, like tricking the player, like leading them through this little sequence where a particular idea like builds and throws increasing challenges at the player. Yeah, and this level has kind of a weird progression because the gold key is down in this swampy type under area, and then you come up through here, And then you basically always, as far as I know, unless there's like a smart way to do it, yeah, like so you're always kind of doubling back through this area, and this area is like crawling with zombies, and that's kind of the first time this level is the first time that you fight a lot of them. Yeah. Oh, cool. Okay, yeah, it's just going to be David Craddock is the author of the Quake piece, and yeah, it's going to turn into just a full-on book. So yeah, look for that. Yeah, I found it pretty enjoyable. It filled in a lot of gaps in what I already knew, and you know, he talked to each of the level designers. Like there were brand new quotes from Sandy Peterson and all these other folks who participated in it, you know, and a lot of that hadn't quite been heard before. I'm kind of just blazing through these levels because, you know, there's no combat, so, you know, there's not a whole lot to just keep me from running through. This is the second crushing ceiling, but actually it's a fake out. It's just about to crush you, and you're like, what do I do? I can't shoot anything to get out. And then it just parts, and you're spared. But then you get up to the top of the elevator here, and you have to fight one or two fiends, which are like the scary lunging enemies. So yeah, that's E1M3, the Necropolis. Okay, and this is E1M4, the Grizzly Grotto. And yeah, we get down, and I think this is maybe like the first time that we see this like swampy brick, like brick overgrown with vines texture. There's a little trap here where we can shoot two of those things, and it goes down and like crushes a knight who's patrolling around down there. And yeah, this level has this significant water feature that you double back through a couple of times. And so I picked one of the tracks that had like kind of a weird suspended underwater kind of feeling to it. You know, and also just like you feel like, you know, you're in dingy underground-y type spaces in this level. It just kind of fit. Very, very subjective, you know, as far as like what kind of track, you know, you think, what kind of music you think works with a particular space. And yeah, you can remix it in the README for this mod that you can download. I described the steps for if you want to create your own, if you want to remix it and if you have your own track order, you can edit the little text entity map files, and then if you want to change the intermission stuff, you have to edit the Quake C. But all of that's pretty easy to do, relatively. Yeah, this isn't a WOD Wednesday, obviously. Yeah, we're playing through, and it's not in a PK3 either. It's just loose files. You just unzip the thing to your Quake directory, and it has its own little subdirectory, and you know, that's the standard way that you load in Quake mods. Oh yeah, that's right. This comes up here. Yeah, so this water feature actually extends, like, yeah, it's just a. And of course, Quake, the Quake software renderer did that cool water warping effect where just everything would just kind of jello around, and it's not really, hasn't really been replicated properly in the more modern OpenGL-based renderers for it. Alright, then you crawl out of this pit, and you see a bridge leading out somewhere. That opens up a little secret there. There's an acid pit. Acid's just another one of those. You know, it's not lava, but it hurts. You get the Trent Reznor screaming noise when you walk into it. By the way, how's the stream quality going? We were having some technical problems on Wednesday, and I did some stuff to fix that with my ISP. Is the video quality and frame rate looking okay? Cool. Oh yeah, I forgot to I should have taken the secret exit I should have taken the exit to the secret level in here. But yeah, like this is the secret level of the shareware episode, Ziggurat Vertigo by American McGee. It's got a lot of his metal plating and skull textures, and of course some lava. And it is low gravity. You start the level and you're like slowly drifting to the ground. And yeah, so that's like a weird thing that you would not have seen in Quake before. And yeah, so like anytime you jump in this level, you have like, it takes you like many seconds to come down. And so there's this very, like the second track on the album is this very, very like languid, like analog, warm, noisy kind of thing that feels like it moves along at a much more glacial pace than most of the other tracks. So that's why I picked that. And yeah, the little Quake lava balls coming up out of the lava. And they will actually hurt you if they hit you. You can even die from them, and there's a custom obituary message. It's like, player gulped down a lava ball or something. Yep. Yeah, so yeah, this is just like a weird space that you move through in a super different way. Like, you can actually just jump up to this space. This is the, like, semi-blasphemous, like, Christian imagery, you know, that is sort of, I don't know, I'm glad it's not a primary part of Quake, just because, like, it's just way more, like, boring and doesn't do much compared to, like, the weird, you know, Cthulhu, you know, tech gothic ambiance of the rest of the game. Getting drops. Okay, well, yeah, I'll keep an eye on that. And I forget how... Yeah, what is the critical path for this level? I think I hit this switch, right? Pretty sure I did. Yeah, and then I think that opens up these gates. And now I can go in here. And I think maybe there's a switch up here that I can hit, and I can just jump right up there. Yeah, I'm fairly certain. Yeah, I think if you enable jumping and turn the gravity way down in Z-Doom, then I think you can. I'm pretty sure you can get a similar sort of effect. Yep. Yeah. Yeah, and like, you know, there's a whole bunch of enemies on these plateaus and stuff, and like you have the rocket launcher by this point, so you're shooting at them and all that kind of stuff. It's a cool mix-up. It's a mechanical mix-up as well as, you know, as well as feeling really different. So I think it was a really good choice for the secret level of the shareware episode. It sort of gave you a taste of like, yeah, in the rest of this game, there's a lot more wild stuff. Yeah, secrets in Quake like almost always involve like hitting a switch or like shooting a thing. There was this prefab, like shoot a wall and then it slides back and away to reveal a secret that they used. Yeah, like I love these cool, like, I don't know, just portal type things, you know, with the warping texture stuff. It's just neat. Quake Guy is the rocket launcher lady from Overwatch. I don't even know enough about Overwatch to know who you're talking about. Is it Zarya, like the big buff pink-haired lady? Because I could see she's definitely kind of a Quake. Yeah. Okay, yeah, this is Gloom Keep, also by Tim Willits, and yeah, I always kind of dug this level just because it felt like it gave you this night. Okay, Farah. Farah is the rocket launcher lady. That's right. Okay. Yeah. This vista, this look that you get of this castle thing at the beginning is like super strong. It's one of like the coolest opening vistas in the game, in my opinion, because there's like these sort of obelisk like light towers, and then you've got just a cool thing, and like there's an obvious front entrance. And then there's a side way, And there's this moat around it that you can, and there's a secret or two in there. And yeah, there's a bunch of like traps and pushers and nail shooters and stuff in this. So this track that I chose for it is kind of like, it's kind of got a lot of clunky industrial sounds. Yeah, like you've got this gauntlet of like little pusher poker things. So yeah. Yep, and you make it here. Okay, yeah, that's how you get this key, and it dumps you back out very nicely through a hole in the floor. Yeah, I remember digging this level back in the day, and yeah, that's a pretty classic piece of Quake level design. Okay, so I need the gold key, so I need to go the other way down this fork. Yeah, there's this is an odd little secret, like you jump up and it makes the little sconce that torch is in slide up. And then there's a secret, but also a pressure plate that opens up another thing, I think. This is one of my favorite things in the game as well. You know, they had like full, like, the lighting in Quake was one of the first games, if not it was definitely the first notable game to use light maps, which is to say, it would render out, you would place light sources just as points in the environment, and then there was this very expensive offline baking process that you would run your map through. And it would basically do like shadow casting and even like radiosity and stuff to figure out and it produced these really nice soft shadows. They're entirely static, of course, but they still looked really good, you know, and like, you know, and so this room right here, you can see the shadow on the floor. It's a Quake symbol, but it's not up in the sky. That was just Tim Bullets being clever and making this geometry out of solid but invisible, shadow casting but invisible material up in the sky there, and then the skylight, you know, just projects down through it and creates that effect. So that's really, you know, it's definitely a neat trick. And yeah, all the designers each kind of had their own fairly distinctive lighting styles. American McGee liked to underlit stuff a lot. Yeah, I don't know. That was another interesting thing about it. You know, just everybody, each level designer having their own episode to more or less to run wild with. I think that's an interesting. Okay, and then you grab that gold key, and all the walls around you drop down, and you're in a fight with a Shambler, which is one of the tougher enemies in the game. Big Yeti thing that shoots lightning at you. Oh yeah. So we're getting a little turned around here. Hop down this pit, and there's the exit. Okay, and this is the door to Chthon. And it's the second to last level of the episode, right before the boss. This is an American McGee level, I believe. It's definitely got a lot of his favorite textures in it. It's got like metal and skulls and stuff, and it's, you know, again, like this underlighting. There's a lot of low light sources. And yeah, like it's a real. I think this he might have done this level for his episode, and then they moved. Like I think John Romero is the designer, you know, as the senior most level designer at id. He kind of got to make the decisions as far as the final, essentially track listing, like which levels were going to be in which episodes, and in what order and stuff. And yeah, this level is a strong enough early look at, you know, a lot of things that end up in the game that I wouldn't be surprised if they moved it to the shareware episode so that it could, you know, sell more copies of the game, essentially. Yeah, and there's a big zombie ambush in here. That's like a little shootable switch, and it drops some zombies on you and stuff. And yeah, this level also just kind of like has this dark, aggressive sort of feel. I forget. Oh yeah, that's right. You hit this, and then that opens that lowers these stairs, and then you wait in here for a while, and then the stairs go back up, and then reveal another teleporter, which I always thought was really cool. And it's actually the place where the zombies dropped in from. There's like a mega health or something up here. So yeah, I haven't played Bloodborne, but yeah, I want to say that I've heard people connect it with Quake, but also it's got the Dark Souls lineage and stuff. So I will have to check that out at some point. All right, we got the gold key. Yeah, I dig these little light cages, you know. I think they really, I mean, so this game's development was definitely something of a mess, like, you know, and you can read about that, like, the details of that. Like, basically, they waited a really long time to get all of the stuff that they needed, all of the engine stuff that they needed to make the game. And so most of these levels were made in, like, the last 7 months of development. And yeah, definitely kind of sounds like a hell ride. But they had learned enough up to that point that they knew how to, you know, how to build stuff in 3D. And yeah, this level is just like, it's the boss fight. I mean, normally you're running around the arena and trying to lower things that electrocute the big boss and get him to drop into the lava, and now you can exit with the rune. And yeah, this track is relatively short, and it's just kind of like grindy, and I don't know, it's sort of like the brevity of it sort of fit with the brevity of this boss fight. So yeah, and that's episode 1. Yeah, and then yeah, after we get the intermission screen, we get the end of episode text, and it's getting. I contemplated replacing this for the mod and just replacing it with something that wasn't specifically about like Quake's story or something, but I don't know, that would have been a whole other creative writing type exercise, and I don't know. I reserve the right to. I can now update this thing on itch, so I reserve the right to make weird little updates to it in the future. So. But yeah, like I was saying, yeah, the level designers, you know, each developed their own approach to lighting and building stuff in 3D, and yeah, and they just slammed out those maps, and they had to throw a bunch of stuff out, I think, and yeah, you know, that's the way it goes in game development sometimes, and it really sounds like it took a toll on this team, because, you know, this was essentially the game that broke id Software, as far as, you know, the team that had made Commander Keen, Wolfenstein 3D, Doom, and Quake. This was kind of the end of them, because after this, you know, Romero was out, and you know, I think Sandy Peterson moved on sometime during Quake 2, and then American McGee was gone not too long after. And everything that they made from this point, like after this point, did have kind of a fundamentally different character. Quake 2 is, personally, I find it like a lot less interesting than anything that they had made prior to that. And then Quake 3, of course, was like, you know, a classic, like, you know, well-tuned deathmatch game, but also, you know, it didn't really have the same kind of aesthetic and level design goals as anything they had done previously. Anyway, yeah, let's jump through the slip gate to the first level of Romero's episode. Yeah, so this is another tech-based level. And yeah, this was another kind of like electronic-y sort of track that I chose for it. And there's some gotcha traps in here. And yeah, some weird kind of doubling back. Oh yeah. Cool. Yeah. Yeah, there is. I think Romero and Sandy Peterson were the designers on this team that were especially psyched about like a Lovecraftian thing, you know, just like doing weird otherworldly Cthulhu stuff. So yeah, I think they were they were running with that. And yeah, it does result in, I think it did inspire them to some of the more strange spaces in the game. The other thing about Quake's development, you know, in addition to just like, you know, being mostly made, you know, in the 11th hour, there had been this whole prior era of Quake's design up until that point had been pretty vague and scattered. Like Romero had a bunch of ideas about it being a more like melee combat focused game and being a more open world type game using like a Hexen style hub system and having like Half-Life style scripted sequences. And then there came a point, I think it was in November of 95, you know, which would have been, I don't know, only about 9 months before the game shipped, that everybody else overruled him and was like, okay, we can't do any of this, you know, wild fantasy RPG type stuff that you want to do. We just have to make something like Doom. And that's what, you know, as in level-based guns, shooting at space marines and stuff like that. I mean, they kept a bunch of like the weird medieval stuff that they had made, but yeah, like, but from that point onward, Quake was always going to be like a more conventional Doom-like FPS design. Yeah, so yeah, we're in the first fantasy level of the second episode, the Ogre Citadel. Yeah, this track has such like a bright, kind of like energetic sound to it that I found it sort of difficult to place in the track and level order. And yeah, I can't remember exactly why I felt like this worked better, but yeah. But yeah, it's a cool level. You're locked in very close quarters with a shambler at one point. These arches are pretty distinctive. That was something, you know, like putting lots of detail on the ceiling and just letting it catch the shadows. Yeah. Yeah, it is interesting to see it. Like, I guess, yeah, I mean, they did tend to, like, put light sources near these windows, even though these windows were totally opaque. They couldn't really do, like, actual transparent surfaces in Quake. But, yeah. Yeah, and this feels like a cool, you know, the walk that you get into this castle is pretty neat. And, yeah, it's another castle with bridge over moat leading into it. This one goes down fairly far, and I think there's some fiends down here. So that's pretty rough to deal with. But yeah, I think that's something that they wanted to, you know, to push a lot in this game. Is just like, you know, you really feel the differences in depth between different levels of the environment, and when you go under stuff, like there's sort of a different like feeling in Doom when you get off into a secret kind of thing. You sort of have, because you know that rooms cannot overlap other rooms in this game, in Doom, you kind of know that a secret might like link you back up with something in a certain way, but having true 3D, as they did on Quake, allowed them to, like, when you would come out of a secret, you could actually just be right in the middle of this pre-existing section that you'd already been to, or you could be right in the middle of a section that you really had no idea at all about. And so, yeah, like, it just, you know, I mean, some of those differences aren't fundamental, but they definitely did weird, interesting stuff with secrets and level flow and just how they, yeah, I mean, you know, like, how you can use verticality changes your level design ethos a heck of a lot, for sure. And, you know, this level is maybe one of the ones that's kind of weakest in my memory. So, like, do I come out here? I know that I have to get onto that. Oh, and I have the gold key now, right? So, no, I don't. Jeez, what have I been doing then? that's right, it's in here. So yeah, how do I... What gets me into there? Oh yeah, Quake's... Quake's original soundtrack came on the CD, and so you would just have that CD in the drive, and it would just play those CD audio tracks, which meant you could listen to it like a normal album in a CD player, as one did in the 1990s. But yeah, if you had a different CD in the drive, then you would just get whatever. So yeah, there was a lot of people have strong associations with particular albums that they just always had in their CD drives. Playing Quake to those albums, and the levels matched them up to different things. So yeah, that was an interesting effect. Somebody else, Tin Kelp in the chat is saying, one opinion I read once and agree with was how Romero leaving made Quake 2 and Daikatana sort of opposite sides of the same coin. Quake 2 was kind of bland but technically competent. Daikatana had lots of crazy neat ideas but was mired by bug issues, and some of the more out there ideas kind of worked against it. Yeah, no, I think that's I think it did. There was definitely a creative schism within id that was only resolved by them going separate ways. Yes, very good point. Like when one of the pitfalls of these tourism mods that I make is that a lot of times direction in the level is way clearer when you have new enemies spawning in or coming in from opened up areas, and so yeah, if you don't already know the levels well, you might tend to wander around wondering where to go, whereas normally an enemy would lead you there. So yep. And yeah, I should say that if you type, there's a line in the autoexec.cfg file in this that comes with this mod that you can uncomment to turn on normal Quake gameplay, where you have weapons and monsters and you're shooting and all that. So you can definitely play it that way if you want. Even within the game, if you want to, you can type show turtles 0, and that will turn on. The next level that you load will have monsters and weapons and stuff in it. So I wanted to make sure that the tourism stuff was simple to turn off, because I think some people will just want to replay Quake 1, as they remember it, but with this new soundtrack. So yeah. So this is the Crypt of Decay. Yeah, it's got this texture is a real workhorse. Like, I don't know, it takes light pretty well because it feels like the lighting that's painted into the texture is also picking up from these directional light sources. So that's kind of cool. Yeah, and there's this big like tower feature in the middle of this space, and you kind of come back to it from... Oh no, there's another tower that's a similar shape to this. Yeah, that's an interesting topic, like different albums with different games. Like what sorts of things go together especially well, or just have like a nostalgic connection for you. Like I remember Chris Remo, he and I were talking about Diablo 1, which was a big game for the both of us at one point, and he was saying that he was listening to a lot of like a particular vein of classic rock, I think, and yeah, so the song Crimson and Clover, I think is what he said, he associates really strongly with Diablo 1, which has kind of, Diablo 1 has that absolutely legendary Tristram guitar track for the town that you're in. I always thought that was an interesting, I don't know, these associations that we form between specific pieces of music and specific games, and even specific areas of games, I find really interesting, like game levels are these environments that you kind of like spend time in, and you're sort of marinating in a particular aesthetic, and then music, often complements that, because you're listening to music while you're doing other stuff, or when you're in a particular mood. So we form these really powerful associations, and I don't know, that's another reason that thought this mod would be cool to do because, you know, it's sort of pairing up, you know, spaces and music that are already kind of work well together. So yeah. Yes, the under. Okay, so yeah, what I've been doing here is I've been opening up the way to the secret exit of episode 2, the Crypt of Decay, I believe. Or no, the Crypt of Decay is the name of the level. I believe it's the Well of Wishes then. Yeah. Which you get a weird little hint about back in the start map if you really dig around. And I think I've gotten a bit turned around here. Let's see, there's a thing you can go through here. Yeah, that's just a... Yeah, I've talked to a lot of people that have different associations with Deus Ex. I mean, Deus Ex also, you know, definitely also has a classic soundtrack. So yeah, where's the dope fish is somewhere around here, as I recall, right? Yeah, I forget what that dope fish is. Anyway, dope fish is in here, but also the secret level. I forget if this is one of those. There are some of these teleporters that if you go through them backwards, you get a different outcome. Like the one in Gloomkeep. Oh yeah, that's right. Anyway, there's a dope fish in the game. If you don't know what that means, don't worry. If you do know what it means, you probably know how to find it in this game. So yeah, this is the secret level. I think this was Tim Willits. It definitely feels more Tim Willits-y than American McGee-y. And yeah, the dope fish is not a secret on its own. Like, you just have to go through a secret area to get to it. So yeah, this was always... yeah, like, this is sort of an odd one out, I feel like. Like, we don't see this texture used a whole lot. Go for a swim first. So the exit, you get taken right to the exit. But then it's like, go for a swim first. Yeah, that was something that they didn't have in Doom, just the ability to, like, you cross a trigger and it just prints a little text message up on screen. Kind of hilarious. I mean, it's a very, very direct way of conveying designer intent. I don't know. I think you could do cool stuff with that. I mean, I guess I'm basically doing that in autobiographical architecture. Yeah, I like this space in this level. This is kind of the space that I remember most from this level. Some sort of little trap type thing. Yeah, I think there's like a quad damage or something. Some little goodie in there. Okay, there's the gold key. Double back nicely. A lot of these things are like nail shooters, which the tourism mod also disables. So, oh, if you shoot all the statue faces. Oh, interesting. Cool. Yeah, I think I knew about that. I think I've done that before. But yeah, is it too late for me to go back and like trigger all of those? And yeah, where does the Oh yeah, it's just a monster closet. All right, yeah, I'll no clip into the secret if I don't get it otherwise. Oh yes, thanks Johnny Law, linking the linking the image of the, I think hadn't been seen up until now, the image where, just the document where Romero laid out the final level order for the game. That's a cool little bit of history to see. Yeah, okay, so have I gone for a swim now? Like, can I get it into the final? Yep, it's another moat and drawbridge. Oh, weird, I'm having trouble getting out of here. Okay. That was annoying. Go for a swim first. Okay. Sorry, folks. I'm bad at this level. It is yeah. This is definitely, I don't know. This level has always felt a lot more obscure to me than many of the other ones. So my knowledge of it is not that great. Okay, so I went through the gold key thingy. So I can just, yeah, that opens up those things there. Probably some little goodie in there. Get some stairs out of the acid. Oh yeah. Yeah, this is a pretty cool, like run, you know, like these diamond-shaped gate thingies that you run through. Oh yeah, there's a nail shooter in the center of this room, and you're like dashing around, trying to avoid those things. Blinky lights. Ah, yes, okay. That opens that up. And then you can get to the... okay, this is where we came from. This is actually sort of a weird callback to, or call forward, I guess, to... there's a staircase and a leading up to a hatch that's sort of like this in American Mickey's episode. Yeah, and I guess I didn't... let's see. So where's the secret here? I could swear that I've seen it before. I just don't remember where. So I'm just no-clipping like a jerk. Down below. Ooh, is it under the slime, perhaps? Whoa, there's this whole tunnel thing beneath the... interesting. Okay, yeah, that's just a normal secret. Oh, what's this? Oh, cool. Okay. All right. Yeah. Well, how do we get to this normally? Oh, I see. Okay. It's in the blinky light hallway, and I guess you just like walk through it and fumbling around here. Oh, okay. Yeah. All right. It's just a chute door. Okay. Yeah. That's right. Yep. Yeah. It's got like this logo TCTW. Tim Willett's. Yeah, I forget what the history of this is otherwise. But yeah, that's definitely like spelling something out in brushwork. It's definitely a challenge. Yep, there it is. And yeah, I forget what TC is, but there you have it. Pretty well hidden secret. Like anytime you have to do like, interact with all of something in a level, like, you know, it's gonna be tough to. Oh yeah, his sister's initials. His sister, who has did uncredited essentially design work on Tim Willett's Ultimate Doom Doom episode 4 level. Yeah, I think like she did the layout work, and then Tim cleaned it up, you know, and just finished the level. yeah, I've always been fascinated by that. I don't know anything particularly about that story other than just, yeah, like, yeah, which would make it the only, female level designer contribution to the original Doom levels. Yeah, level designers putting their initials in a level. I shouldn't, yeah. So I haven't talked about the contract work that I'm doing right now. I haven't talked about publicly what that is and what it's doing. But yeah, I might have signed my initials somewhere. Maybe you should play a game that comes out sometime within the next few years, and if you see my initials, you'll know it was me. Also, I'll probably be in the credits, but anyway. I'll talk about the contract work that I'm doing at some point, but not today. Maybe once it's a little further along. But yeah, this is E2M4, the Ebon Fortress. Yeah, it's got all this blue stone type stuff. Like, I actually do like this texture a lot. And yeah, it's like a distinct palette shift. You know, like Sandy Peterson and American McGee each tried their own hand at making fairly blue-centric levels as well. And so it's interesting. It's interesting to see how they were. You know, Quake had a relatively limited color palette. You know, they restricted it. There's a lot of dark shades of different colors, so that you know, so that the lighting system could do its work and have things drop off into deep darkness, which is definitely the right call. Oh wait, where do we go here? Sorry, the light's kind of shining in through my... Oh, okay, this is a... Did I miss something here? No, okay, yeah, that's just Oh, and this is where I came in. Okay, I'm sorry. I'm just fumbling along here. Oh, that's right. I didn't get the key from this little platform up here. And you know what? I'm just going to cheat my way up to it. This is tourism. It's fine. Yeah, no, that is an interesting question of, like, when it's, I mean, yeah, I would never want to sign my name in a way, to a level in a way that was either obnoxiously obvious and, like, calling attention to itself, or breaking the game's fiction. You know, I mean, the name that I go by has 2 letters in it also, so working that in is way more easy than, you know, than it would be for somebody with a much longer name. So there's that, I guess. Cool, alright, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, when I was playing through this to set the... to figure out all the track to level mappings, I definitely gained... I hadn't played Quake 1 in a pretty good while, all the way through. And it definitely reminded me of a lot of the things that I like about each of these levels. I don't know, they're all... I don't know, most of these levels have a few cool things going for them. This is E2M5, the Wizard's Mance, which is considered by some to be like the coolest single-player map that Romero did for Quake 1. I do think it's pretty cool. It's pretty distinctive. It's got like this blue, this medieval blue kind of thing going on, and a lot of ramps and yeah, it's also got, I mean, this initial vista that it hits you with up here, like this is a big weird portal and it feels like you're going into something really significant. And yeah, the Wizard's Mance, yeah, no, good call. Like the Wizard's Mance is just a very cool name. both in the hilarious way that wizards are hilarious, but also the wizard's Mance. Yeah, and there's like this big multi-level area. This has always reminded me. This has always felt like I played this back in the day, and then a few years later, when I was playing Unreal for the first time, the Nolly Castle level of Unreal feels like, you know, the designers were definitely, at least in part, inspired by this map and maybe some of the spaces elsewhere in Quake that felt like this. Yeah. And yeah, there's a whole good fight where, you know, you fight some stuff with your first trip through that room, and then on your second trip you're up on another level and there's a different fight. Good level designy type stuff. Yeah, I mean, yeah, like it was a lot more common in the Quake 1 days for people to just play all of the single-player maps in deathmatch, even if in some cases it was very poorly suited for them. I don't know, in those days it was just kind of interesting to just run around spaces together. You know, you could also play Quake co-op, but yeah. Okay, and so yeah, we're now back on our third trip into this space, and we're up on the highest platform that's going across, and we go into this little room here, and we hit that switch, and all of a sudden we're sealed into this cage, and it starts lowering. We're being lowered into the water, and we're like, okay, I guess I'm trapped in this little box that's moving around underwater. This is something that they absolutely could not have done in Doom, you know, because you've got like boxes made of arbitrary brush geometry just moving through an environment, not just up and down, but side to side. And yeah, the whole deal with like that little gimmick right there was basically just like we're gonna lock the player into a cage, and then stick them underwater and leave them underwater without any means of escape for just long enough that they start drowning, so that when they finally come up, they're like, oh my god, I thought I was gonna die in there. I didn't know how long they were gonna keep me in there. So that's definitely like, you know, I think this game is just full of those little bits where the designers were looking for ways to like have this kind of dungeon master-like adversarial relationship to the player. And when that stuff was done well, it was really fun because you felt like you were having, you know, like this designer was like setting up these challenges for you, and you were trying to outwit them. When it's done poorly, obviously, you just feel like the all-powerful deity of the world has just smited, you know, just smites you, and you're like, oh, well, how was I supposed to know that was coming? I mean, that's, you know, good single-player level design like that is very much an animating, you know, dilemma of it, you know, where it's like, okay, I want to give the player cool stuff and like throw stuff at them that will make them feel challenged or compelled, but also if I overstep that, then I'm just a jerk who's smacked people down for stepping into my world. So yeah, we are now at the last level of episode 2, the Dismal Oubliette, and you can see here this might not be familiar to you if you're really familiar with the game as it shipped, but this is one of the other creative liberties that I took with this mod is that I reintegrated Romero. So when the Quake level designers were building Quake's levels, they you would build your map in the editor, and then it would compile into a BSP file, which would then go into the main game data file. They set a limit, mainly just for disk space reasons, of 1.4 megabytes, like the size of a floppy disk. And they were like, yeah, like if a map goes over 1.4 megabytes, it's probably too big, too long, you know, it might be bad for performance or something. They just set that limitation. And so when Romero was working on E2M6, he built this whole intro section that we're in right now. And as the level progressed, it ran over the 1.4 megabyte limit that they had agreed upon. And so he had to cut something. And so what he cut was this intro bit where you're in like this, and it's a really interesting space. Like you're walking through, it's like the floor is water, and you just kind of have to jump into it and wander, and then eventually you work your way up through these walkways, And then eventually you find yourself at the entrance to the level, the entrance to the level as it's shipped in the game, which is right here. And there's this visibility blocker here. Like if you've done any level design before, you'll recognize this little feature right here where there's like essentially like a rectangular kind of donut-shaped hallway with a big slab right in the middle. We call that like a vis blocker, where what it's doing is that when I'm standing here, I can't see through this doorway or anything that might be like close by. Because when you're making a level, you have to worry about what's on the screen and how much work the computer is having to do to render the current scene. And if you stick too much in there, then it runs slowly, and that ruins the experience. So yeah, like this vis blocker, you boot into this level as it shipped, and you're like, why is there what is obviously a vis blocker right at the beginning? Well, it's vestigial from the point where this level had a whole intro section that was probably kind of expensive to draw. And so somebody, like a few years ago, like Romero released this fragment, the lost entrance to Dismal Oubliette as E2M10 in 2001. Because Romero is, he has all his old files and stuff from the day, and so he released it mainly just for historical reasons. And then somebody re-merged it basically into the main map because we have the source files for those maps. And so this is the completed full Dismal Oubliette map, including its lost intro, which I just thought was cool to include. This is like the last level of the episode, and I don't know. I do really like that the map has this build up before you get into the main like hub part of it that you'll be doubling back through. Yes, I have played Arcane Dimensions. I haven't played like all the way through it, but it is a really, really wonderful, impressive mod. Like, yeah, lots of really good contributions. It's basically, for those unfamiliar, it basically just kind of like, it takes the original Quake level design that we've been seeing here as sort of a prototype, but then extends it massively and takes advantage of like higher, of the reduced engine limits, so that you can put a lot more detail on screen. It adds a bunch of new gameplay and monsters and stuff, but in a way that feels very true to the original. It's basically just this beautiful, loving like expansion upon the original game. It's really something, yeah. And like the level design in it is just, is just regularly outstanding. So yeah, definitely check that out if you play through Quake 1 and are still hungry for more, or you don't want to play through Quake 1 again. Definitely check out Arcane Dimensions if you haven't. Okay, and then this whole little section is kind of like this is an elevator that goes to multiple floors. So we ride this lift up to the second floor, and then we have to do some stuff before the third. We gotta open this thing up. How does it go? Yeah, this is a little confusing. Yeah, I always like this room. This room is just kind of like off on its own, and it just kind of feels like a medieval castle room with like these windows and some light coming in, and you can see the sky outside. It's just kind of a little moment. Alright, I have clearly become a little turned around here. Nope. There we go. The third floor is accessible. Okay, so this lift will now take us up to the third floor. Yeah, while Quake 1 was being developed, the designers did not know about rocket jumping. That was something that was discovered after Quake 1 came out, and people recorded demos and started doing speed runs, like, the original Quake done quickly and all that. So a lot of these levels in Quake 1, you can definitely break by rocket jumping, or you can just skip, bypass. But by Quake 2, it definitely knew about rocket jumping because there's like a little there's a little secret that you can only get to by rocket jumping, and I think there's like a little message that displays that's like, "You wacky rocket jumpers." So it's interesting to see how there's like kind of a conversation between the game's community and its designers over multiple iterations in the franchise, I guess. Yeah, that's true. They did know about grenade jumping because yeah, there's a couple of points in Sandy's episode 4 where you grenade jump. So yeah, it is interesting that they Okay, yeah, now we're on this very long, slow... Not the express elevator to hell, because that's in Doom 2, the master levels, but... It's a non-express elevator. And yeah, like, enemies are teleporting in. Some zombies, I think, are coming in, and you've got to run away and jib them within this confined space. And then maybe a shambler shows up towards the end, I think. Yeah, like I felt like this I matched this track to this level, and then I was like, yeah, this track really like has this feeling of building and building, and that made me think about the Lost entrance thing that Romero had released. So I was like, oh yeah, I'll track down, like, you know, I'll just include the merged version of that map. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Sadie Peterson actually did. Yeah, like, I mean, he was the author of E3M6 Mount Erebus, which included Doom's version of the rocket jump, actually. And then yeah, he did like a barrel chain reaction type thing in E1M8. So yeah, I think he was very much thinking about the properties of like game physics objects and stuff. Yeah, and yeah, like I don't know if I want to play long enough to get to episode 4 today, but actually yeah, we're basically exactly halfway through. So maybe I'll pick this stream up again later. Because yeah, we've now played through half of Quake 1, the first 2 episodes. Yeah, the inmost lore of the Hellmother. Yeah, this is the Quake story delivery mechanism. You're getting those runes. Eventually, you'll open the gate to Shub, the witch goddess herself. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, Shub is gendered female. It's cool. Makes things a little more interesting. Her frightful otherworld cathedral. Good job, person who wrote that. I don't know. Yeah, like just, you know, it's a little more flavored. It goes nicely with the visuals. So yeah, and now we're back in the start map, and episode 1 and episode 2 are closed off, and we've got the remaining 2 episodes. We did totally learn lore. Okay, well yeah, that seems like a good place to leave it. Yeah, this was a very obvious choice for the start map. The first track on the album. It's this contemplative, eerie piano type thing. There was never any question that this was where it belonged. Okay, well, cool. I don't know when I'll pick up this stream again, but I would like to, you know, at some point soon. And then yeah, maybe we'll play through Quake episodes 3 and 4. But yeah, thanks for... I'm going to quit out now and sign off. But yeah, thanks so much for watching this. This mod here, you can go to jp.itch.io. jp.itch.io is my itch.io thing, and I'm starting to put all of my tourism mods and Doom mods and old prototypes and just all kinds of stuff up on my itch.io page, so pay attention to that if you want. And yeah, this is the page where you can download this mod. It's pretty, I don't know, I mean, it's a little fiddly if you haven't installed and run a Quake mod before, but it's not too hard, and I include all the... tried to make the README as comprehensive as possible. And yeah, if you remix if you come up with a different track and level ordering pairing, then yeah, definitely let me know, because I'm interested in other people's takes on that. But yeah, have a good one, folks, and thank you for watching this.